Welcome to North Platte, Nebraska, where the Platte River splits to the north and south. This quaint little town is home to the world's largest rail classification yard, Union Pacific's Bailey Yard. In this video, me and a few friends will be spending a full day out in North Platte and the surrounding area. We begin further west in Julesburg, Colorado in the early morning. So early, in fact, it's still dark. An eastbound train has a clear signal along the Sydney subdivision. It's a manifest train bound for North Platte. Another eastbound is following close behind. This time it's a grain train. You can tell sunrise is inching closer and closer as the sky continues to get more blue. As the sun is starting to poke out, a presence of a thick fog covering the landscape is starting to take shape. That's not stopping this eastbound intermodal train, however, with a Southern Pacific painted AC4400 on point, one of only 5 remaining. We would follow this train east, all the way to O'Fallon's. The double main track along the Kearney Sub allows trains to pass each other with ease. Old US&S color light signals stand strong along this line as our Southern Pacific passes under a classic signal bridge near Ogallala, Nebraska. We finally reach O'Fallon's for one last shot of our Southern Pacific. A Union Pacific local also wanted to join in on the action. O'Fallon's marks the junction point to the Powder River Basin, branching northwest off the Sydney Sub. We move to the east end of town along the famous triple-track main line, also known as the Kearney Sub. On this end of town, you will see a healthy amount of manifest and coal trains. We also see a unit soda ash train headed westbound. Three-way train meets are very possible on a triple-track main line. Our two westbounds are awaiting authority into North Platte, while an eastbound manifest train rolls out. Action continues at the Airport Road grade crossing. This giant scanner is used to identify what cars are going in and out of North Platte, as well as identify any possible defects with said train cars. Cameras are located all around this device and take hundreds of photos every second. A computer processes and looks through each photo and identifies any possible issues with the car. We stayed to watch a few trains pass the scanner, including this coal train. High priority Z trains are also a common sight in North Platte. Here we see one speeding westbound into town. A westbound manifest train follows in close proximity to our Z train, with UP 1979 third out, the We Are One Diversity Inclusion Locomotive, unveiled in 2021.
the west hump, or the west origin, over.
We race back west to O'Fallon's to capture a loaded coal train coming off the South Morrill Sub. This train has a very special DP unit on the rear. UP6379 is our special rear DP, still in its Southern Pacific paint. This would be our second SP unit in one day, a rare sight, as only 5 AC4400s still reside in their SP paint. The excitement would continue as we poked down to the Gerald Gentleman branch, where we captured the Gerald Gentleman coal train going into its namesake power plant. Union Pacific's North Platte to North Yard manifest train was on the way. This is a train we see all the way back home. It's quite a long one today. The Golden Spike Tower provides you with an excellent view of Bailey Yard, as well as provide a lot of history about the yard and how it works. You can also buy little knickknacks. I got a Union Pacific keychain, which I later broke. You can see lots of action here, including an old MP15 switcher locomotive switching out the engine shops. You can also see a switcher dumping off cars into the hump yard. And there's our SP unit we saw this morning. I could spend all day here, watching all the action. But unfortunately, the trains were calling, and we had to go. We spent the rest of the day at O'Fallon's Junction, where we see various trains going across the Union Pacific system. A ballast train is taking the rarely used west leg of the Y at O'Fallon's. In the meantime, a loaded coal train was also coming down. Once the ballast train clears, train action continues on the Sydney Sub as that crisp afternoon golden light begins to settle in. The North Platte to Denver Manifest train also makes an appearance. This train is a strange one. It carries sand cars for Eaton, intermodal for Denver, and autoracks for Rolla. This train sadly no longer exists and just gets tacked on to the North Platte to North Yard manifest, a classic example of precision scheduled railroading. We followed the train toward Sutherland, where light is a little more favorable. The ballast train we saw earlier was also tailing our NPDV, so we got a quick catch of that before heading home for the day. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. North Platte is definitely a railfan hotspot I highly recommend. There is just so much train action around here, and you could just spend weeks here without ever getting bored. But unfortunately, we don't have the time and money to do that. So anyways, I hope to see you all again soon, along the Front Range and beyond. Goodbye.